In the past, I never understood why people cared about mice so much. They just seemed like such a minor part of the overall computing experience. But after buying my MacBook Pro, I heard so many recommendations for the Logitech MX Master 3 that I just had to buy one. And after using it for a few months, I must say, I think I've changed my mind. Here's my full review of the Logitech MX Master 3. Let's get started. The experience of using this mouse starts with the box. Now, I tend to not care about boxes that much, as you only really use them once, but there are definitely some things of note within the unboxing experience. Within the thin outer cardboard box, there's a thicker cardboard box which contains the mouse, but also a USB-A receiver, as well as a surprisingly high-quality USB-C to USB-A cable for charging. I wish it was a Type-C to a Type-C, as it would work more with how my lifestyle works with technology, but I understand why they went with Type-A, as almost everyone has a Type-A USB adapter laying around somewhere. All of this is great, but what really sold me on the box is the fact that it contained no soft plastic. I'm a huge proponent of reducing packaging and saving the environment, so I'm really glad that Logitech took this step to reduce their packaging and reduce the waste from the box. As I mentioned, the box contained a USB receiver, but this mouse can also connect with Bluetooth. While the USB receiver will reduce latency, I prefer the Bluetooth method as my MacBook Pro doesn't have any USB-A ports, so I'd have to carry around an extra adapter to make it work. I tried using the receiver for a bit, but I didn't find any noticeable difference in latency, so I've stuck with Bluetooth. This mouse has 7 buttons: left click, right click, middle click, backward, forward, as well as 2 extra buttons, one on the thumb pad and one directly behind the scroll wheel. Now, there's also 2 scroll wheels, and I could make an entire video just about these scroll wheels, but I'll try to keep it brief here. The main vertical scrolling wheel is different from basically any scroll wheel I've ever seen, and I'm sure you'll be surprised by its capabilities. There are 2 modes. One is the standard ratchet mode where you scroll line by line, and the other is this smooth scrolling mode, which gives you a fluid range of movement similar to scrolling with a trackpad. You can easily switch through these modes either by clicking the button or by scrolling at a higher speed, and LG calls this meg speed. It's so useful, and it really improves the experience of using this mouse. As I mentioned, by default you are in ratchet mode, but a firm spin of the scroll wheel smoothly switches you over to the free spin mode, which allows you to scroll super quickly and easily skim through insanely large documents. It's just a super satisfying feature, especially how you can effortlessly stop the scroll wheel with just one finger, even when it's spinning many times a second. Now, the scroll wheel is great, but I think I should move on here. The left and right click buttons also feel nice and depress evenly across the entire surface, but they are a bit louder than I would like. Below them is the backward and forward buttons, which are quieter, but have a slightly mushier feel. They're very useful for browsing quickly through websites though. Above those backwards and forwards buttons is the sideways scroll wheel, which scrolls horizontally. It's great, but it's locked in the free spin mode, so it can be hard to navigate precisely through documents or spreadsheets. Now, I mentioned the mode shift button earlier, but I'll go over it again here. It's directly behind the scroll wheel and allows you to easily switch between free spin and ratchet modes. It's clickier than the rest of the buttons on the mouse, but isn't that loud and still feels nice overall. There's just one more button I need to cover, and that is the gesture button. It's located on the thumb rest and is really like a natural place for your thumb to hit. However, I found it sometimes a bit difficult to tap it correctly if my thumb wasn't exactly in the right spot, so that's definitely something worth noting. With the buttons out of the way, the overall feel of the mouse is great. It comfortably lets my hand rest on it, and it's obvious that a lot of thought went into the design of this mouse to make it as comfortable as possible, even over long periods. This mouse also looks good. It has a clean design and doesn't try to draw too much attention to itself. It has subtle silver accents and a small Logitech logo on the left click button. So, to summarize so far, the hardware is great. It's comfortable, refined, and looks nice as well. But there are much cheaper mice that have all of these features, and that is where the Logitech software comes in. The MX Master 3 is meant to work with Logi Options, which is a free piece of software for Windows and macOS. Logi Options allows you to customize button function, scrolling speed, tracking speed, and much, much more. That on its own is great, but what really sells it for me is the ability to create individual profiles for different apps. This means I can scroll the timeline in Final Cut, undo and redo in Pages, switch tabs quickly in Chrome or Safari, and more. This makes for an incredibly versatile mouse in basically any situation. Now, a few notes on the software. If you can't get it to work on your Mac, which I actually struggled with in the beginning, go to System Preferences, Security and Privacy, and then make sure Logi Options daemon is selected under both Input Monitoring and Accessibility. This solved the issue of it not detecting the mouse for me, and I think it's the generally accepted solution. I'm not sure why Logitech hasn't addressed this yet, but this is the easiest workaround. Secondly, if you're concerned that this software will kill too much of your battery life, don't be. It generally only uses about 1 to 2% of my battery over 12 hours, which I consider worth it for all of the customization options that it brings. Thirdly, let's talk about Flow. Flow allows you to copy text and even files between different computers by connecting the mouse to both of them. Now, I didn't have two computers to use to test this out, but it sounds like a super cool and useful feature. Now, moving on from that super useful software, let's talk about the experience of actually using the mouse. Now, most of my testing took place in macOS, but I did test the mouse out in Windows for a few hours, and the experience was pretty similar. The mouse feels accurate and precise, and I never struggled to hit small UI elements. The dual scroll wheels also allowed me to quickly scroll through documents in both the vertical and horizontal directions. The gesture button, though, is one of the best features of this mouse. On macOS, a click takes you to mission control, a hold and down takes you to app expose, and a hold and a movement left or right will quickly switch between virtual desktops. This allows for insanely fast multitasking, and it's just another feature that makes this mouse amazing for productivity. The back and forth buttons are also super useful for fast browsing and have different features in other apps, and the dual scroll wheels, as I already mentioned, are super useful and feel great as well. Now, this mouse obviously isn't directed at gamers, and I don't game very much, but I think if you use the USB receiver for that faster response time, you shouldn't have too many issues for some light gaming. Another great thing about this mouse, which I feel like Guys, I'm not sponsored by Logitech, by the way. These are just like my actual thoughts, and I'm sure you've already heard a lot of hype for this mouse, but it's actually pretty good. And the battery life is also great. It's advertised as 70 days, and I got about 60 with my medium usage. Fortunately, it charges super fast with the USB-C cable, and it can be used while being charged, unlike another similarly priced mouse. Speaking of price, this mouse is $100 or $130 in Canada. That might seem high, but I think it's worth it. The experience is just super good, and you're getting a useful, comfortable, and powerful mouse with software that really enriches the experience. If you need a mouse with tons of features that's also ergonomic and looks good, the Logitech MX Master 3 is pretty great. Of course, if you only need the basic features of a mouse, you can always pick up something like a $10 mouse from Amazon, but I think a lot of people could benefit from having a more powerful mouse in their lives. Alright, if you enjoyed this review, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like and subscribe. The channel just passed 800 subscribers at the time of recording, which means we're approaching 1,000 subscribers, which is just a huge milestone. Thanks everyone who has subscribed to this channel, I really do appreciate it. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.